more weather, more news. The biggest team in Fargo-Moorhead is right here. This is WDAY Radio, AM 970 and FM 93.1, Fargo-Moorhead, West Fargo.
Good afternoon, Ty Schoner to WDAY News First. 3 o'clock, fair skies, 37-degree temperatures outside our South Fargo studios. We now know the name of a motorcyclist hit during a crash on Wednesday afternoon in South Fargo. State Patrol says 18-year-old Jake Crum remains in critical condition after the incident in which he was thrown from his bike when an SUV turned in front of him at the intersection of 40th Avenue South and 66th Street. The 15-year-old driver of the SUV and 2 young female passengers were not hurt. The crash remains under investigation. City officials in West Fargo say they're taking steps to address the child care crisis.
We've been getting lots of emails and letters, and as long as I've been in, saying, help, what can you do?
City Commissioner Mandy George says the commission has formed a committee to try and come up with solutions to address the child care shortage. One possibility is to offer grants to support child care startups. George says child care providers in the city are currently meeting about 88% of overall demand. She also says she's aware of a child care waiting list of 400 families in the city. George appeared on What's on Your Mind. And North Dakota Game and Fish Department is issuing safety recommendations to hunters in North Dakota and Minnesota ahead of today's season opener. The department says hunters going out to rural areas should be careful driving in dry conditions off of trail, which could lead to grass fires. Also, hunters should wear blaze orange to remain visible to others and not consume alcohol during their hunts. This is Ty Schoner with WDAY and WDAYRadioNow.com. More of The Jay Thomas Show coming up.
I'm David Chapman, and I'm a candidate for district judge. Our courts were designed to interpret and enforce the law. Our courts were not designed to write the law, which is the job of our elected legislators. In North Dakota, our judiciary carefully respects this special role, and I am a candidate because I wish to use my years of experience to continue that tradition of enforcing the law regardless of personal preference. If elected, I would be honored to serve.
Paid for by David Chapman.
From ABC News, I'm Dave Packer. The Federal Reserve trying to cool the economy to tame inflation, but today the government reported another 261,000 jobs were added to the U.S. economy in October, more than expected.
The government's October jobs report shows resilience in the labor market with solid gains in healthcare and manufacturing. The unemployment rate ticked up, but it's still near a 5-decade low. Ongoing strength in the jobs market could encourage the Federal Reserve to continue aggressively hiking interest rates as it tries to cool down the economy to lower inflation.
ABC's Elizabeth Schulze. Twitter's one place where thousands are losing their jobs. Up to half the workforce. New owner Elon Musk starting the cuts today. The leader of the Oath Keepers, a militia group at the center of the January 6th seditious conspiracy trial, takes a stand in an unusual move.
Stuart Rhodes, leader of the Oath Keepers, attempted to paint the militia group as a civic service organization that provides relief to communities. Lawyers claim the group only came to Washington to serve as security for others attending the pro-Trump rally, and that the group had no political objectives that day. In cross-examinations of government witnesses, attorneys have tried to make the case that prosecutors are overstating the group's true intentions and falsely casting their words and actions as plotting against the government. Ike Ajachi, ABC News, Washington.
Senate races going down to the wire with just 4 days till the midterms. Pennsylvania's Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman telling supporters at a rally in Pittsburgh he's looking to beef up health care coverage for all Americans.
Health care saved my life. That's something that all of us here should have that kind of health care as well, too.
Polls showing Fetterman tied 46% to 46% in his race with Dr. Mehmet Oz. Tomorrow's Powerball jackpot, now the largest lottery jackpot in history, rising to $1.6 billion. At the close, the Dow jumped more than 300 points, closing at 403 points higher. You're listening to ABC News.
COVID-19 moves fast, and now you can too. If you feel symptoms, even if they're mild, you should test fast. Test positive and at high risk for severe COVID-19? Then act fast with authorized oral treatments that can be taken at home and must be taken within 5 days from when symptoms begin. COVID-19 moves fast, and now you can too by asking your healthcare provider if an oral treatment is right for you. Learn about a treatment option at treatcv19.com. This message is sponsored by Pfizer.
Like bones, your teeth lose density and become weaker over time, which can lead to tooth decay. And that can make your visit to the dentist feel like this. But if you want your dental visit to feel like this, try Crest Densify. Crest Densify actively rebuilds tooth density to extend the life of teeth by remineralizing enamel. Densify from Crest, the #1 toothpaste brand in America. Smile.
The weather is sponsored by Sweet Shots. Take your game to another level. Climate-controlled bays, indoor sims, a putt view green, and PGA teaching pros. All at Sweet Shots. Meet, play, dine.
Partly cloudy skies for this afternoon. We'll have light winds with highs in the low 40s. Northwest winds switching to the west around 5 to 10. Clear skies overnight tonight with lows near 20. Light winds out of the southeast. And for Saturday, partly cloudy skies with highs in the mid to upper 40s. Southeast winds around 5 to 15. Slight chance of a few light showers Saturday night. And then very windy conditions on Sunday. West-northwest winds 30 to 40 and highs in the low 40s. From the WDAY Skywatch Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Dean Wysocki.
I'm Carter Eisinger. It's time to get serious about putting North Dakota kids first. We must defend parental rights through all decisions in our children's education. We must reduce wasteful administrative bloat in the budget and instead prioritize our teachers and the classroom. Finally, we must protect local control of education through the school board, not top-down standards and policies from Washington, D.C. On November 8th, vote Brad Leeser and Carter Eisinger.
Paid for by District 11 Republicans.
Today's Jay Thomas Show is brought to you by United Automotive Tech Center. They do everything.
Jay Thomas here for PetroServe USA. You know the rides truck? It's on camera a lot, and to keep it clean and ready, I send it through the car wash at PetroServe USA. Matter of fact, I just stopped by the 45th Street location on Tuesday, and I found out they have BOGOs on washes that day. Buy one, get one free. Touchless, rollover, and tunnel options at all 5 locations, plus American refined petroleum straight from the Bakken in Canada, too. Keep your rides clean like I do. Take them to PetroServe USA, helping America fuel better.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in to a special presentation here on WDAY Radio, AM 970, FM 93.1, streaming live as well on our Facebook page, YouTube as well, and the website, WDAYradionow.com. Election season 2022 gearing up towards Election Day. It is just 4 days away. And today we have special programming for you in the form of the first and only Cass County Sheriff's debate. Here, of course, for the open position of Cass County Sheriff coming in just a matter of days. Of course, joined by current Cass County Sheriff Jesse Jahner and his challenger, Cass County Sheriff's Deputy Mathew King. Just a quick update. My name is Kyle Cornell. I'm the news director here at WDAY Radio, of course, and the Flag for Flag Family Media. Just some rules and some rundown for you guys as we get ready to go for this debate today. Each candidate will be asked questions throughout the majority of this debate. Responses will be anywhere from 3 to 4 minutes, giving you guys some time because we have 2 hours here in our studios in South Fargo. There will be a chance for a rebuttal if that same question is not directly asked to your opponent as well. There will be allowed to have some open conversation, obviously, but I ask you both to please be respectful to each other and let each other talk and make sure we get through to our total points. This is not to be a mudslinging contest in any sort of way. This is all about, of course, talking about the issues that affect everyone here in the great county of Cass County and making sure we get to the bottom of why you both want to run for sheriff here in the county. So, with that being said, it's time to get underway. Going to start, of course, with introductions and welcome in to the program as he is the incumbent, Cass County Sheriff Jesse Jahner. Sheriff, I'm going to give you the floor here for the first couple of minutes and let you introduce yourself and welcome to our studios.
Sure. Thanks, Kyle, and thanks for having this, arranging this debate for us. My name is Jesse Jahner, and I'm the current sheriff in Cass County. A little bit about myself. I grew up in Strasburg, North Dakota, and my dad was full-time in the military, and so throughout my childhood, we moved a few times. I lived there. I lived in Mayville, North Dakota, and then moved to Fargo when I was a junior in high school and graduated from Fargo North. From there, I went to North Dakota State University and got my Bachelor of Science degree in criminal justice. And in '98, I started at the Cass County Sheriff's Office. When I started there, I started off at the lowest position you could start at the agency. I started off in the jail as an outdoor recreation deputy, and I worked my way all the way up to sheriff. So Throughout my career, I tried to gain experiences as many different aspects of law enforcement as I could because I knew one day I'd want to lead the Cass County Sheriff's Office. So I worked in the jail, I worked patrol, I worked for the Narcotics Drug Task Force as a detective. I was promoted to sergeant. I worked for supervised the Metro Area Street Crimes Unit. I was a training sergeant and until I was promoted to captain. As captain, I oversaw our special operations group or unit within the agency. I oversaw patrol. I oversaw our school resource deputies, our PIO position. And I was also with Red River Valley SWAT for 14 years and left there as the assistant commander. And so I've tried to put myself in positions where I could gain as much knowledge as I could in law enforcement because I knew that leading the Cass County Sheriff's Office, which is the biggest sheriff's office in North Dakota, was going to take experience in all facets of law enforcement to understand those things and to also be able to come up with policies, come up with procedures, and also be able to, as we encountered critical incidents and things like that, be able to work through those types of situations and then also be able to build relationships with the community that we serve. And so as my time as a sheriff, I've done a number of different things there to increase my education to lead the organization. I attended the Department of Homeland Security Leadership Academy, the National Staff and Command College, FBI Trilogy Leadership courses, and the National Tactical Officers Association Critical Incident Management and Risk Mitigation. And so I think all of those things prepared me to lead this office. And then over the last 3 years, of course, I have led the office and been challenged in many different ways that way. So that's a little bit about myself.
Sheriff Jahner, thank you so much. Want to shift over to your opponents here in this debate today. Current Cass County Sheriff's Deputy Mathew King. Sir, thanks so much. Tell us about yourself.
Well, thanks for having us on and having this debate. I'm Mathew King. I grew up in the Hunter area, or the northern part of this county, which brings a lot of different aspects of the small town community, the farming, agriculture. Started working when I was 8 years old on a farm. Continued doing that, had a couple other different jobs before I got into law enforcement, which was a individual that worked here at the time. He no longer works here, but he got me into law enforcement. So when he got me into law enforcement, I started off as a reserve. So you get to learn the many different aspects of our reserves. It has changed over the years, but went into the jail, got to do 3 months inside the jail of working in there. Then they started teaching us some of the road stuff, got us prepared for ride-alongs, doing special events from the parades to barn dances to just about anything that the Sheriff's Reserves were allowed to do. From there, I was hired on in 2014 to patrol. So I started doing that. 2015, I got kind of a slap on the shoulder and saying, hey, you're going to go do some UAS. I'm like, oh, this should be fun. So don't tell anybody. How did it go? Don't tell anybody. I haven't told your command staff yet. So that started me off on an adventure that some across this county or country have told me as the top UAS in public safety across this country. I'm just saying I'm knowledgeable in the area, but that's what I took a call from Alabama last week and got something approved that they said was going to take 3 days. I got it done in a day and a half. So got some things done there. But when it comes back to the small town community, my mom grew up down in the Kindred area, and so all my aunts and uncles were down there. My dad grew up around the Castleton area, grew up around that whole area of Castleton, and got relatives all over. So giving back and wanting this position, I've learned a lot in the last couple of months of stepping up and what needs to be done for this organization. And if Jahner wins this again, I hope that there's some things that I bring up that he jumps on and moves forward with.
Gentlemen, thank you so much both for the opening statements there. We're going to dive into some of the questions now and kind of get this debate really going. So first off, you both mentioned a little bit of your background to this point and things you've been able to do over the number of years, obviously, in this department throughout the area as well. Matt, I want to start with you. As far as what really qualifies you to take this leadership role as the Cass County Sheriff if you get elected on Tuesday?
If I'm elected on Tuesday, yes, this is the largest law enforcement agency in the state of North Dakota. If fully hired on, we're looking at 240 people, I believe. There's a lot of dynamics that go in with it. And understanding people is one of the biggest things that you have to know. You have to be able to, not everybody's going to like me, not everybody's going to hate me. I mean, looking at the qualities that I bring, is understanding the people and understanding and listening to what they have and trying to figure out solutions on how we can try to conquer that. Just like any training that we've gone through with the sheriff because of all of his SWAT experience, there's always a way to get things done. And when you embrace that and understand what some of these people are going through, whether it's in their personal life or whether it's in business, if we can figure out that and then believe in our people, we'll be able to succeed a lot of different things inside this organization. The leadership of effective communication, of understanding, relating to what, like if somebody's got an issue, hey, I understand the issue is this, I hear you, how can we fix this, put it back on them. Because as leaders, especially at the top of this organization, we all have to remember that we're replaceable. Something could happen, we have to be teaching our next group of people coming up, like, hey, are you going to take the reins? Like, or are we helping them mentor to go above us? So I've really worked on the last 2.5 years of talking with supervisors and trying to figure out, are they replaceable? Like we had that talk a couple weeks ago or about a month ago when we were in here. Are they replaceable? Some, no, I'm not. Like, this is my spot. And then I sit and talk to them like, are you doing your job as a leader if you don't think that you're replaceable? Help them out. I've gone through corporal processes or promotional processes where I've sat down with deputies, one deputy for like 4 hours, bringing out the best in that individual to find out what his strengths were, and he was my competition at that point. And that's kind of like this situation. This is David versus Goliath here versus the incumbent. If I can at least show, hey, here are some of the issues, and we get it done, even though this is on a public ordeal, great. Then I helped him get better, and he can move on. Okay?
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Sheriff Jahner, same question over to you. You've obviously been in this position now for the first term, a couple of years now. You've been able to kind of have the reins of this department. You mentioned the size of it as well. Well, what qualifies you to keep you in this spot for the next 4 years?
Sure. Well, like we mentioned earlier, I mean, this is a large organization, the largest sheriff's office in the state. Again, with approximately 240 employees when we're fully staffed, our budget is approximately $25 million. And I think what obviously qualifies me to lead this organization is both education and experience. My education, which we mentioned just a few minutes ago, started off when I graduated from North Dakota State University with a Bachelor of Science degree in criminal justice. And through my time at the sheriff's office, I've tried to take advantage of every opportunity that I could to put myself through different leadership types of training. Like I mentioned a couple of those already. I put myself through National Command and Staff College while I was leading this organization, which is not an easy course to make it through, even when you're not leading an organization of this size. And I did that while working here. And so, like I said, I think education, but definitely experience. I mean, like I mentioned in my opening comments, I've had the opportunity to both work and lead in all divisions of this organization. Both as an employee at the sergeant level and as a captain, and then also as the assistant commander of the Red River Valley SWAT team. So definitely that experience. And on top of that, during my time as being sheriff, I've led through 2 different floods. I've led through civil unrest in the city of Fargo, and I've led through a pandemic, and then recently through having an internal candidate at our agency. And so, and I think that, through doing that, I think our agency has been very successful. Over the past 3 years, we've brought a number of different things to the table which weren't in place before, as far as resources, training, and the way that we worked through these different situations that we've had. And so I think there's no replacement for that type of experience that I've been able to gather through serving in all these capacities and then also leading the agency over the last 3.5 years.
Sheriff, next question is for you. Recently, we talked to several members or former members and employees of the Cass County Sheriff's Office and Department who've expressed concerns, of course, over the story and the handling of a fairly recent internal incident involving a lieutenant and sending of a nude photo to another member of your staff. Can you kind of speak to how the investigation was handled and how you feel that you did the proper job to do this? And then obviously, Deputy King, I'll have your response after the answers to this question as well. Okay. So we'll start with the sheriff first to give your take on the internal investigation, and then, of course, we'll get a rebuttal.
Sure. So, obviously that incident was not the most favorable incident for the organization. We had a lieutenant who made a mistake. And, throughout people's careers, people make mistakes. And I believe that investigation was handled appropriately. At the end of the day, I need to look at the organization through a 5,000-foot view, right? Because like we just mentioned, we have a number of employees at the Cass County Sheriff's Office. We have a number of employees who have made policy violations, and that's what occurred here at the end of the day. And so, when I'm handling these types of situations, we need to make sure that we're fair and that we have integrity through the process. We have a fairly good process set up through the Sheriff's Office. I believe in that process through our Office of Professional Standards. There's an opportunity for an investigation to occur. There's an opportunity for the employee to bring up concerns throughout that process. And there's an opportunity if that person is looking at termination or loss of pay, that they can have a predetermination hearing with me. So I think that the process is very fair. And so I think that the investigation was handled appropriately. At the end of the day, I need to look at the whole organization and say, are we doing what's best for the organization? Are we doing what's best for the employee and for other people who have been in that same situation? When I came in as sheriff, what I did was meet with all of our staff and do one-on-ones. And throughout those one-on-one processes, what I learned from most individuals is they wanted to see a change in how we handled our internal investigations, because a majority of them were going directly to the Office of Professional Standards, and it wasn't giving our supervisors any opportunities to coach and mentor our staff. So that was one thing that they asked if we could change, and I did that. I changed it to a performance evaluation process. And through doing that, what that gave our supervisors an opportunity to do was sit down with employees and coach and mentor them and really open up the lines of communication and see how we could do things better and see how we can learn. In this particular incident, there was some of that occurred. But all in all, to go back or circle back around to answer your question, Kyle, I feel like the situation was handled. It was over a year ago. That person had accepted their discipline, and really at the end of the day, when that discipline comes out, it's time for the organization to move on. Certainly things can be learned from it, but I think that through that process, I think that the supervisors involved in that and also that employee had an opportunity to sit down and converse, and that there was an open line of communication and some coaching and mentoring that occurred.
And thank you, Sheriff Jahner. Deputy King, I'll give you a chance to respond. I know that this has obviously been a topic that's been floated around recently, especially in the media, as well as the handling of all this, and you've had some interesting takes about that. I want to give you the floor now to talk about a response to Sheriff Jahner there, with him saying that he feels the investigation was done properly.
Right, and I think last week on the Jay Thomas show, when he had called in on last Wednesday, I believe, and then there was a couple Wednesdays beforehand, I went in and had a conversation with the sheriff March 31st, I believe. It was like our second conversation, and I asked him what was going on. So he had me, you get all your answers in the personnel file or whatever I got from the HR that April or whatever day that I got it, but I had more questions. But throughout listening to all of this, it comes down to, we as law enforcement, we follow the evidence. And what's kind of disappointing is that the evidence wasn't followed. Obviously, it was a picture. It needs to go away, boss. At the end of the day, this thing needs to stop. It's over. People, I get it. But when you look at it, we didn't follow the evidence. And with following the evidence would be, hey, we have to talk to the victim, find out what what it is. Okay, it is a photo or whatever's been posted with text messages. And then you read the investigation, and somewhere in that investigation said that the photo was supposed to be trying to be deleted, something like that. And I'm trying to get my head wrapped around it. I mean, people do what you do to spice up your life. I get that. But I think that if you messed up, you would have a quick panic text like, oh my God, this was meant for I'm sorry. But there wasn't any of that in the text message. So I get the sheriff and everybody stands behind it, but there's obviously some questions when it comes down to the validity of following the evidence. Because we've had calls over the years, or over the last year or so, where an individual called into the office, just said, hey, this happened at our place of business, all of that, and then we get notification down saying, nope, you have to go to these calls because there's going to be evidence there, and we got to try to figure that out. So if somebody calls in and doesn't want to report something to us, now we're supposed to go do that, and then when somebody does report something that has something, now we're not looking. We're getting some mixed messages, I think, is what's the majority of people are getting out of this.
Sheriff, care to respond to that at all?
Well, I'd like to know what evidence he's referring to.
Well, you ended up saying the photo. I mean, the text messages would have been, like, did anybody ever look at the photos or the text messages or anything?
That stuff was mentioned to Captain Stating, and Tommy didn't deny sending the stuff there. Lewick didn't deny receiving it, so that was the evidence. The evidence was, did he use his phone to send the message, and he did.
Right.
Simple as that.
But don't we also want to confirm, like, when listening to Lewick last week, he said that nobody looked at his phone. Nobody talked to him first. Isn't that what we're supposed to do? Well, I mean, I know you've told me, make sure that I go to this one house in Mapleton, make sure we get there, we get the information before we go try to track down this car. Like,
sure.
So that, you guys like instill in us,
like I mentioned,
that it was never done.
Tommy admitted to sending it, and Lewick admitted to receiving it.
Okay.
So do you actually need to look at it? I mean, they both said it happened.
Well, but then when you read the report, and then who aired, whatever media station where I saw the text messages. I think April Baumgartner showed me that Monday, but I didn't pay attention. It was 1100 the flag or something. I was reading the context of the text message. And when we are going and talking, it was supposed to be meant for the wife, meant for all of that stuff. Yes, I understand where you're coming from. Yep, he admitted to it. Yep, he admitted to receiving it. But shouldn't we also take a look at it to find out if the truth of the matter is?
So what was the policy violation, Matt?
Well, there was another policy violation.
What was the initial policy violation?
There was two initial policies.
What was the initial policy violation, the initial one?
Use of county phone.
Okay. Tommy admitted to doing it, and Lewick admitted to receiving the photo. Case closed, right? So do you need to look at Tommy's photo?
No, I don't. Okay. But don't we want to?
Well, so what other evidence are you tracing? That's what I asked you.
Well, in there, so the text messages have been out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and now it says, hey, who's Coach so-and, Coach Dirk, and then it kind of goes on in a time frame.
Yep.
Okay, and you're still willing to stand and say, yep, this was done 100% without a little bit of question on if this was meant for his wife, because the whole report says it's going to his wife.
Okay, well, keep in mind, I didn't do the investigation, right?
No,
the
but
investigation was brought to me, and the initial violation was, did he use his county phone to send the messages? Yes, he did.
Right.
Okay.
And then
you want to go down a path, and then we called in because the other initial question was it intended for Lewick? That was the second allegation, right?
Yeah.
As you remember. Okay. So we brought in Tommy's wife because he said that he intended to send it to her. She admitted to receiving messages from him, and that they both admitted to doing it several times. Okay, so now what other evidence would we have to look and see who else he may have wanted to send this to if that's your allegation?
Well, I'm just
because
looking,
the message
I'm
came
looking
in.
At the
message
text message.
Yeah, the message
I'm looking
came
at
in.
the report, and the text message does not match what the report says. It says it's being sent to the wife and all of that, and I'm trying to understand where you're coming from with all of this, but. I'm on the backside getting blamed for dumping this out, which I didn't, okay? I didn't tell anybody to go do this. I don't agree with the way that it came out. But I've now seen the text message, and I've seen what was said throughout this whole course of the investigation.
Sure.
And if you bring her in, they might have done that, but where was the text going, oh, hey, my bad. Why it didn't have that? The context behind the text message seems to be different than the context of the investigation, which I'm asking the question.
And I don't agree with that. I don't agree with what you're saying. Because what we were looking into were the policy violations, and I think that we established that. Tommy didn't deny that he sent it.
Right, but then you also just mentioned that you brought in his wife for the other, to make sure that it wasn't sent to Luick on intent, right?
Because he asked for that.
Right, and so then why weren't the photos looking at that point to find out the context of the text message?
Because at that point, like I mentioned, Tommy said that he sent it to Luick, right? Luick said that he received it. The question was, did he intend to send it to Luick? Tommy admitted that he had sent messages to his wife before, and we brought her in, and she admitted to that. Okay, there's a question of another person in there, but how far do you want to chase this around?
Well, I don't think that you need to chase it around 100%. Like, keep digging to find out who's who.
Yeah, because we do that with everyone.
But when the context of the text message, and then you bring her in, shouldn't you at least verify the text message of what was said in the text message before having that conversation?
I don't know the extent of the conversations that he had with, that Captain Stading had with his wife.
You can at least agree that there's got to be at least something. Because if I went out and did this on patrol and I didn't look at a text message, you and I would be having a conversation, or somebody would be having a conversation like, why didn't you do this?
It depends on what the scope of your investigation was, what you're trying to prove.
Well, aren't we supposed to follow the evidence and let the evidence tell us the truth?
Yep, depending on what you're trying. Depending on what you're trying to.
If you just mentioned that, yes, we follow the evidence to find the truth, but now we're not going to look at the text messages, I think you're kind of contradicting yourself here.
Like I said, the policy violation was, did he send the text messages to Luick? Neither of them denied that. That was the policy violation. This is an administrative investigation. This isn't a criminal investigation.
No, it's not.
Okay, so there's a huge difference there, which I don't think you understand, because we can chase things down an administrative thing and pry into all kinds of into people's personal lives. That's not the scope of the investigation, and an administrative.
But you have a text that says, this is sent over here. He says it's just his wife. He's supposed to sign a guarantee, right, to say that he's going to give truthful, honest things. What is it? Hold on. The guarantee?
Okay.
Is it sign off saying, hey, we're going to give you the full truth and all that? This isn't going to be used in a criminal action or anything along those lines. So looking back at the text messages now, and it's saying that it's supposed to go to somebody other than probably his wife, because I'm guessing that you would probably panic. You go, oh my God, this was for my wife.
Maybe, but you're speculating now.
Right, but nobody looked at it and nobody pushed forward. I get, this needs to end, and those were my concerns, and probably just like everybody else's concerns, that it doesn't seem like it was handled properly.
Yeah, it was an administrative investigation. During an administrative investigation, we're looking to see if policy was violated. We did that, and that was the end of the investigation.
Gentlemen, we're going to take a pause now. Ronnie, we're going to take a quick break here, of course. Thank you both again for answering questions. More on the way here on WDAY Radio, of course. Sheriff's debate for Cass County, Sheriff Jesse Jahner and Sheriff's Deputy, again, Mathew King. Don't touch that dial. Back after this. Thanks to our sponsors again. All Finished Concrete, West Fargo Events, Plains Grain and Agronomy, NDSCS Apprenticeship Program, and Hanson Runsveld Funeral Home. Back after this.
Do you have money in the bank or the stock market? Do you check the balance often? Why wouldn't you do the same for your biggest asset, your home? If you want to know right now what you could sell your home for in this hot market, go to FargoHomeValues.com. Type in any address and find out instantly. You might be surprised how much you could get for your home. Again, that website is fargohomevalues.com, or call me, John Nosala, for a personal valuation. Find out more at jkpropertypartners.com.
I am Greg Steeman, State Representative for District 27 in North Dakota. As your representative, I will fight for family priorities, such as additional behavioral health services, parental rights and education, and a pro-growth small business environment. Our district is one of the fastest growing in the state, and infrastructure needs will be a priority as well. I will work hard on behalf of District 27 in Bismarck, and I am respectfully asking for you to vote for Greg Steeman on or before November 8th.
Paid for by Greg Steeman for House.
Hi, this is Jesse Jahner, and I'm seeking re-election for Cass County Sheriff. I've been with the Cass County Sheriff's Office for 24 years, serving as your Cass County Sheriff for the past 3. As your sheriff, I will continue to make public safety our highest priority, continue to work with other agencies, work to protect your constitutional rights, and continue to build strong community partnerships. Cass County is continually changing, and so are the challenges facing law enforcement. You need a sheriff who is going to continue to work hard and be forward-thinking to meet these challenges. This November, vote Jesse Jahner for Cass County Sheriff.
Paid for by Jahner for Sheriff, Matt Heinzen, Treasurer.
This November, North Dakotans will vote on Measure 2 to legalize marijuana. I'm Scott Brand, former soldier of the Army National Guard, military veteran, and an attorney from West Fargo. I guess people know I'm a pretty straightforward guy, so I'm letting people know that I'm voting yes on Measure 2. When I returned home from Iraq in 2007, I saw fellow veterans suffering from PTSD and debilitating pain. For many people struggling with serious health issues, marijuana is the only thing that helps. But far too many people who need marijuana for medicinal benefits can't access it in North Dakota. Legalizing regulated adult use of marijuana changes that. As a veteran, I support Measure 2. It'll ensure veterans and other patients can get the relief they deserve. This is a chance to show each other support and compassion. Vote yes on 2 on November 8th.
Paid for by New Approach North Dakota. Mark Freese, Treasurer.
More of the Jay Thomas Show in 60 seconds.
I'm David Chapman. I'm a candidate for judge. For 25 years, I've enjoyed tremendous success in our community, but it is time to give back. I love freedom, our country, and our Constitution. If elected, I will enforce the law as it is written, not as I wish it were written. I invite you to visit Chapman for Judge on Facebook, and I would be honored to serve.
Paid for by David Chapman.
Find trustworthy car repair.
Okay, here's what I found.
Hi, I'm Matthew, owner of Fix It Forward Auto Care. We're confident that we can handle whatever your vehicle needs. From hybrid cars to full-size trucks, no job is too big or too small for our ASE certified technicians. We focus on quality, integrity, and giving back to the community at each of our 3 Fargo, Moorhead, and West Fargo locations. Fix It Forward Auto Care, the name you trust for car repair.
Fix It Forward Auto Care.
Welcome back, everybody. 3:38 here on this Friday afternoon. Thank you so much for stopping by the Jay Thomas Show. This special coverage of your November 2022 election is the Cass County Sheriff's debate between current Cass County Sheriff Jesse Jahner and his challenger, Sheriff's Deputy Mathew King. Again, gentlemen, thanks so much for taking some time out of your schedules and days to stop by here and do this for the people of Cass County. Really appreciate you both making time for this. Again, Sheriff Jahner, this question starts with you, and we'll ask Deputy King this as well. More of a general question about crime rates here in the area. We're seeing obviously an uptick when it comes to violent crime and, of course, the influx of drugs into Cass County and the Fargo-Moorhead metro area. Your thoughts as current sitting sheriff, and if you are reelected on Tuesday, to be able to continue to combat that and try and curb those rates and drugs here in Fargo-Moorhead and Cass County.
Sure. Well, certainly, I believe that we still live in a very, very safe community. And, of course, we want to keep it that way. And certainly, over the past several months, we've seen maybe a little bit of an increase in some of the shootings that we've had in the area. And most certainly, we're seeing an increase in the amount of overdose deaths that we've had over the last couple of years. So those are certainly huge things that we need to pay attention to. A way to combat that, I think, is to work collaboratively with all the agencies in the area, and we've done, I believe, a really good job with that at the Cass County Sheriff's Office. And the reason that it's important that we work collaboratively with other agencies is, number one, for resources. because everyone right now is struggling a little bit with resources, as you know, Kyle. And so by assigning people to different task forces that we have in the area, we get a bigger bang for our buck, so to speak, with combating certain pieces of crime. So we currently have someone assigned to a federal drug interdiction team that we have. We've got people assigned to the Red River Valley SWAT team. We've got people assigned to the Metro Area Street Crimes team. We've got a person assigned to our drug task force. And so through all of those different task forces, of course, we can keep a handle on some of the crime that we're having in this area. There's a couple other things that we've put into play recently. We've teamed up with Fargo Police Department and the North Dakota Highway Patrol on the weekends to do some interdiction type enforcement in the downtown area, which has been really important in trying to curb some of the crime that's been going on down there. And we've also been working on getting together an interdiction team here with the Sheriff's Office. And so we know that having both 94 and I-29 coming into the Fargo-Moorhead area, that there are a lot of narcotics that are being trafficked into our area. And I believe that it's important for us to go after the narcotics traffickers and stop that from happening. And so we're going to work diligently as we move forward to combat those efforts. We've also added 2 canines to the Cass County Sheriff's Office and kind of re-sparked that program. There for a while we didn't have any canines in the department. And so both through those efforts, I think those have given us another handle on combating narcotics in our area. I've taken part on a violent crimes work group that we've recently started in our area where we can share information and talk about the particular parts of the city where crime seems to be escalating, so we can concentrate our resources onto those areas. And then also taken part in some opioid roundtables to bring in our community stakeholders, community partners, to work on how we can work together to combat opioid addiction in our community, because that's obviously an important thing. In relation to that as well, we've also added at the Sheriff's Office a crime analyst at our department, and I think that really helps us identify again where we think our high crime areas are in Cass County, and that way we can direct our resources during different times of the week that these crimes might be escalating, different days of the week, and it helps us utilize the resources that we have more efficiently to combat that.
Very good. And Deputy King, I'll ask you the same question. In this role, if you get elected on Tuesday, the plan to try and combat the rising crime rates, the violent crime, the drugs here in Cass County and the metro area?
Well, and I know that I mentioned the first thing I'm going to do is go start working with the commission on trying to secure some more funds. When it comes down to drug interdiction, we need some more people to be able to pull that off. Just like Sheriff said, we have a hub here with I-29 and I-94 going from East Coast, West Coast, Canada to Texas. Like, we have a hub. So we need to track down those traffickers. We also have to try to track down any of that money to try to disrupt anything. Working on the street, like I ended up finding off of one person, I tracked that person to another person. I was finding people in Polk County, Grand Forks County, Trail County, Richland County, Ransom County, Stutzman County, Barnes County, trying to reach out to other deputies to find out, who are they associated with, how are they coming into Cass County, and then that situation kind of disappeared and left. That was up in kind of the northern part. And then there's another group around the area that I had been working on before I got moved out of patrol into court transport, where I was trying to find out if fentanyl was trying to be moved through here because a group of people might be moving into this area. And then after that, I don't know where that intel or information has gone, but like Jesse said, we live in a safe community. The crime rates have kind of ticked up. You're starting to see a little bit more of the gun violence. You're going to start seeing some more of that. Catalytic converters seem like they kind of tapered off a little bit, but that was getting to be a little bit ridiculous of them going and cutting people's catalytic converters off. With the crime analyst, with that guy, I had the same kind of program, so I kind of understood what we were looking at, of creating heat maps or creating where the issues were to the point of that. So I want to work on trying to get more people. When it comes down to like the jail and we end up finding these guys, I didn't know about the opioids or the things that Jesse has been working on, but one of the thoughts in the back of my mind is working with some rehab centers to try to get some people maybe on the right track again. And working with our other agencies with the drug interdiction, helping them out the best we can.
The next question is going to be for you, Deputy King. There's been some concern over what some have called a lack of management experience for this type of position for you. That's been one of the
absolutely
one of the media concerns that's been pushed out there as well. Obviously, the record not having a management position in this arena when it comes to the Cass County Sheriff's Office. Can you kind of respond to some of those claims that you may not be fit to run an office that does have 240 people under your umbrella? Can you kind of speak to those concerns?
I understand the concerns where they're talking about, especially with my opponent over there talking about all the experience, and he's ran this position now for 3 years. When you get the right people put in place, things start happening. If you can believe in your captains going down, they get the job done. Like one of the questions, if it ever comes up, is the jail. What are you going to do with the jail? I know under North Dakota Century Code, there's a whole list of things that we can do inside that jail. We have a captain right now that knows the ins and outs of that jail. Like, he's my go-to person. Patrol would be the same thing. Investigations, the same thing. So if you have the right people put in place, you believe in them, you trust in them, they get the job done to help me in this position. Because you're right, Jesse, you went and did some command courses and put yourself through school the last 3 years, I believe is what you said. So am I going to get put into that position as well? I would hope so. I would hope that if I'm elected on November 8th, that I put myself through and finish off the FBI LEADA class, because I put in for the second course and I got turned down for it. Finish that tri-level off and look at command leadership classes in schools and get myself to right where Jesse's sitting at now.
Sheriff Jahner, I'll ask you a follow-up to that question. Do you think that Deputy King has the tools to be a leader for the Cass County Sheriff's Office? If, in fact, he does win the election on Tuesday, do you feel confident that the Sheriff's Office would be in good hands?
So, kind of go back to what he said, most definitely we have to believe in our people. I have an exceptional leadership staff at the Sheriff's Office. We have 4 different divisions, like I already mentioned, with 4 captains that oversee those divisions, and most certainly, you know, they're my people that I go to get things done. But at the end of the day, when you're running an agency this large, it comes down to you. You can rely on those people certainly to get a lot of things done for you. But anytime that we have a critical incident or anything like that, the buck stops with the leader of the organization. And do I think that Matt King has the experience right now to work through a really serious critical incident and to then go in front of the media and talk about that? I would have to say that I do not believe that he does.
Care to respond to that, Mr. King?
I believe in myself. I know the buck stops at me, or in this case right now, is Jesse being sheriff, the buck stops with him. I have no issues with sitting down and talking or making tough decisions. So that's why I'm here. If I didn't believe in myself that I could do this job, I wouldn't be sitting here today.
Gentlemen, we're going to move on. You mentioned the jail, Deputy King, as far as plans for that. I know that's been something that's been a topic for debate for a while, pretty full over there at the Cass County Jail right now. Sheriff, we'll start with you. I know obviously you've pushed heavily for expansion of the jail. You've worked with the commission to try and make that possible. Plans are in the works right now. Talk about the upgrades you think need to take place for the Cass County Jail to be an effective place to keep the community safe for the next number of years.
Sure. Well, Kyle, obviously public safety is the number one consideration that we need to think about as far as our community is concerned, and the jail plays a big part of that. Over the last couple of years, we've seen a huge issue with capacity levels there. And initially, that started about 2 years ago, and the pandemic really seemed to enhance that issue. What we were starting to see is that some officers out on the street were making some arrests, and they couldn't bring some of those individuals in because we didn't have the capacity to accept them. So much like you said, a couple of years ago, I started sitting down with the commissioners and collaborating with them and our county administrator to look at potentially adding on to the Cass County Jail. And so a study was done on that, and we saw through that study that over the next 10 years, we're going to need approximately 450 beds. Right now, the capacity at the Cass County Jail is 348. What we've seen over the last couple of months is our population hovering around that 300 to 310 mark. And I currently have anywhere from 14 to 20 people at different jurisdictional jails right now, which costs the taxpayers of Cass County money to house them there. And so we're definitely at a full capacity. One of the issues that we need to look at going ahead and adding on to the jail is how do we handle some of the new issues or some of the new problems that we're seeing that are coming inside our facility. And those include mental health issues, and those include intoxication management issues and addiction issues. Right now, individuals that have all those different types of needs are spread throughout our facility based on how our facility is currently designed. It wasn't designed to work through those types of situations. And so as we've gone ahead with the design phase of the jail, what I like to kind of call it is smart incarceration as we look to add another pod onto the jail. And that is, how can we add a pod onto the jail where we can meet the needs of all these individuals that I just described? Because if someone has mental health issues, or if we're dealing with an intoxication management issue, those individuals can't be double bunked with other people. And right now the jail isn't really set up to handle that. So we need to look at ways that we can have different types of housing and stuff in this new pod to handle those types of situations, which is what we're kind of looking at right now with this design phase, as I had mentioned. The other thing that we need to keep in mind is the staffing levels that we've had. So the new design that we would be adding onto the jail would add 96 beds. And in doing that, of course, we're going to need more staff to observe that part of the jail. And so the way that we would design this would be that we would need limited amount of staff to be able to observe the individuals in this housing pod based on how the architectural design of that pod is completed. So that obviously is being taken into consideration. The other thing that is being taken into consideration is the size of each cell, because by DOCR, Department of Correction and Rehabilitation Standards, that's who oversees our Cass County Jail, as far as standards and policies and procedures are concerned. We would be looking to design each cell so there'd be enough square footage, because it has to be a certain amount of square footage if we're going to house 2 people in there, to add additional beds in the future so that we can save the taxpayers of Cass County money by the initial design, or this initial design, and then being able to add another 96 beds on top of this initial 96 without causing too much fiscal responsibility to the taxpayer. So I think that we have a very good plan going forward. This needs to come to fruition so that we can continue to provide public safety to our community. And I think that based on all those things that I mentioned, I think it's a good plan going forward.
Deputy King, I'll ask you the same question. Obviously, the jail was an important part of the job for the sheriff, as well as the sheriff's department, obviously running the jail itself. So plans to be able to expand and be able to take the necessary precautions and measures to make sure that the county is safe and that the jail is run properly and safely.
Well, like the expansion's already going through. The part that I would add in there is when we're talking about mental health and the drugs and things like that, I want to bring in another mental health coordinator along with to try to help divvy up some of the things that are going on inside there. Another thing with the expansion and the people, and it comes down to public safety, we got to take care of our people that are working in there. These guys are taking, the men and women that are working inside that jail right now, take care of some people that have already been charged with murder, to maybe somebody that's been brought in for a DUI or some lower offense charge. I know that Jesse has gotten 2 raises for him, correct?
For the staff at the jail?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's 2. I want to try to get some of those guys a little bit more money for the way that they do the job inside there, the expansion that goes on. Some of them are set at a different price point, some of them at a lower price point. I want to try to make it equal for these guys, because these guys have a tough job. It's 12 hours, and a little bit more than 12-hour shifts for them. They sit there day in, day out, taking care of the people that you may not want to have come back to your house. So I want to look at another bump for them. I know that we're going to have a pay scale raise in 24, correct? Are we shortening pay scale in 24?
I'm currently working on reducing the steps, yes.
Okay, so that's also coming, which would also help out with probably some retention and maybe some recruitment to help out with the facility, because if we're adding 96 beds and if there was a possible talk of doing another expansion, I'm guessing we're going to need an extra 12 people off the top of my head, and I could be wrong. I haven't talked to Andy or anybody about how many more staff members we're going to have for that jail. And then if we expand on to that even more, we need to work on that recruitment. We have to work on that retention. I want to work on that mental health. When it comes to the drugs and the alcohol abuse that goes on inside there, I want to work with some people I know, like F5 sitting inside the jail right now, and some other people that do some rehab. Let's try to, like I think your slogan was back in May, Jesse, let's try to have these inmates leave better than what they came in for. So that's my big approach with trying to work that jail.
And Kyle, if I could just add a few things to that. So most certainly, and adding another addition to the jail, that's a small piece of the public safety aspect and incarceration and being able to keep the community safe. There's a couple other things that we've been able to implement over the last 3 years here, where we're really trying to assist with those space needs at the jail. So a couple things that we currently have in place is our CSU unit, our community supervision unit, and what that unit is we have people placed on there if they're low offenders, they aren't a risk to society. We can have individuals go out on that program, and they live at their residence out in the community. They're still under the custody of the sheriff, and I have 2 deputies that oversee that program, and what they do is they make sure that individuals who are on that program currently go to regular services that they seek every day, and that helps in the rehabilitation process. Also, we started what's called the Reignite, which is a program that we have in the jail, or just getting started in the jail. And what that looks to do is to give individuals in jail who have the shorter sentences, brings in a trade or skill that they can start learning, so that when they get back out into the community, they can find employment, hopefully find employment, and then not come back, because as most people know, a lot of people that are in the walls of the jail are repeat offenders, and we want to try to stop that as a revolving door. Matt mentioned the F5 project. That is an important project. They mostly deal with housing, and are starting to look into some more rehabilitative efforts, but housing is a big need for those leaving the jail. So as far as mental health and things like that, we do have a mental health coordinator inside the jail right now. And what that person does is they look to do assessments when people come into our facility and hook them up with the proper services if they need more clinical help and things like that. And then we also have a behavioral health care caseworker in the jail, and that person looks to hook people who are leaving our facility up with services, so once they get out into the community, they can continue with those rehabilitative efforts.
Gentlemen, I have about 2 minutes left till the top of the hour. I'm going to do a quick fire 1-minute answer for this question. It's heavy, but it's still worth obviously asking. Deputy King, I'll start with you. You got a minute. Biggest issue currently facing the Cass County Sheriff's Office right now?
Biggest issue I'd say right now is communication. I think that if we had effective communication, we probably wouldn't have the issues that we would have going on, and I probably wouldn't be sitting here in this chair. There's just a quick 1 minute for you.
Like 12 seconds.
That's 12 seconds.
Tell you what,
you wanted hard
setting
hit.
a land speed record
quick,
there. I appreciate that.
Gave you a quick answer.
Sheriff Jahner, same question to you. Biggest issue facing the Cass County Sheriff's Office at this moment?
Is definitely recruiting, retention, and officer wellness. And we've done a number of things to try to move in the right direction in regards to these issues. We've put together a recruiting team, and that recruiting team goes out to functions that we have in the community to try to bring people in for employment. They're going to the high schools, the colleges, and trying to recruit people there. Retention, certainly we want to make sure that we can keep our employees around, the ones that we have there. And so I've been looking ways to increase benefits, pay. We just got vision insurance, which is something we've been trying to get for a couple of years. I've been able to get our officers an adjusted pay scale since I've been there, and then also get them a couple raises. And then in addition, we're looking to reduce our steps so people can climb higher in their pay grade a little bit quicker. As far as officer wellness, we've got a number of things that we've put into play over the last 3 years. Obviously, our employees have access to EAP. They have access to vicarious trauma grant that we have, and we're recently adding a program called Cortico, which is a peer assistance self-evaluation program where our employees can access this and do it anonymously and ask for assistance if they need that. So as far as communication and Matt mentions, there's a number of things that we've done in that regard as well.
Right. Sheriff, I'm gonna get you to take a break here for a second because we're going to talk more about communication and morale coming up here on the debates, of course. Cass County Sheriff's debates here. Sheriff Jesse Jahner and Cass County Deputy Mathew King here on AM 970, FM 93.1, WDAY, Fargo, West Fargo, Moorhead. News coming up, a break. When we come back, more questions. Stay with us.
Angry outbursts, bullying, harassment, and emotional abuse. The allegations against State Senate candidate Dan Bomer are horrifying. Divorce records say the cops were called to Bomer's home multiple times, and he had to be escorted from a doctor's office by police. Worse, Bomer recorded his young son while he showered. He recorded his wife while she slept and broke into their bedroom after she barricaded the door. Bomer even made her drive herself to the doctor while suffering a miscarriage. After their divorce, Bomer paid his child support late, too, weeks at a time, failing to provide for his young children. After all that, Dan Bomer wants to represent us in the state Senate. But after calling his own wife a cunt, stupid, a parasite, we should never call Dan Bomer senator.
This independent expenditure is paid for by the DFL Senate Caucus. It is not coordinated with or approved by any candidate, nor is any candidate responsible for it.
My name is Kim Heckvick, and I'm running for Cass County State's Attorney. As a prosecutor in Cass County for over 16 years, I have focused on making our community safer by holding offenders accountable. My smart on crime approach will keep our community safe by incarcerating dangerous and repeat offenders while addressing the root causes of criminal behavior, like mental illness and addiction. Please vote for me, Kim Heckvick, for Cass County State's Attorney.
Paid for by Kim for Cass County, Janet Tronier, Treasurer.
I'm John Hoven, candidate for the U.S. Senate, and I approve this message.
In their unequivocal endorsement of John Hoven, the Fargo Forum says,
John Hoven has racked up an impressive record, and he's consistently delivered for North Dakota.
Also, the NRA has again endorsed Hoven and gives him an A+ for his defense of Second Amendment rights.
John Hoven works for North Dakota.
Vote John Hoven for Senate. Paid for by Hoven for Senate.
At United Automotive Tech Center, we service imported and domestic vehicles. Our expert technicians do tune-ups, carburation, fuel injection, brake and chassis service, starting and charging, electrical systems, wheel alignment, shocks and struts, engine repair, tires, and more. When you get down to it, we're here for any maintenance your car requires. United Automotive Tech Center with 3 locations, 2 in Fargo and 1 in West Fargo.
Expert repairs from people who care. United Automotive Tech Center.
This November, North Dakotans will vote on Measure 2 to legalize marijuana. I'm Scott Brand, former soldier of the Army National Guard, military veteran, and an attorney from West Fargo. I guess people know I'm a pretty straightforward guy, so I'm letting people know that I'm voting yes on Measure 2. When I returned home from Iraq in 2007, I saw fellow veterans suffering from PTSD and debilitating pain. For many people struggling with serious health issues, marijuana is the only thing that helps. But far too many people who need marijuana for medicinal benefits can't access it in North Dakota. Legalizing regulated adult use of marijuana changes that. As a veteran, I support Measure 2. It'll ensure veterans and other patients can get the relief they deserve. This is a chance to show each other support and compassion. Vote yes on 2 on November 8th.
Paid for by New Approach North Dakota. Mark Freese, Treasurer.
On the job for you with the largest news and weather teams in radio. This is WDAY Radio, AM 970 and FM 93.1, Fargo, Moorhead, West Fargo.
Good afternoon, Ty Schoner to WDAY News First. This newscast brought to you by Lakeland General Store for everything you need at the lake. 404, fair skies, 38-degree temperatures outside our South Fargo studios. Residents in Moorhead seem to be mostly on board with a proposed half-cent sales tax on the ballot next week.
I think it's a great thing for our community to compete with Fargo a little bit more. It's Moorhead to have this facility would give us better opportunities for our kids and families and people coming in to visit the area.
We talked with several residents at one of the 3 public meetings meetings held last night at the Moorhead Public Library. The goal of the meetings was to take feedback and give more information on what the sales tax is going forward. If approved, it will essentially fund a community center library in downtown. A Newtown man has been sentenced to 15 years in federal prison for multiple charges, including sexual contact of a child. A U.S. District Court judge sentenced 51-year-old Richard Hall following a guilty plea earlier this year to 15 years in prison and 10 years of supervised release. Hall pled guilty to abusive sexual contact of a child and sexual contact of an unconscious person. The victim was less than 12 years old at the time of multiple incidents. And this is the weekend to turn your clocks back 1 hour. Daylight savings time officially ends Sunday morning at 2 a.m. First responders in North Dakota say this is the time to check all fire, smoke, and CO2 alarms in your house and replace their batteries. Health experts say it's also a time that's taxing on some people's hearts, so it's important to get to bed just a little earlier to adjust to the change. This is Ty Schauner with WDAY and WDAYRadioNow.com. More of The Jay Thomas Show coming up.
Terry, so talk about doing business with DJ Coulter and American Family Insurance.
DJ is one of those insurance agents that's always going to be there for you. And he's always got great advice for a young family starting out, for an old family. We've got all our cars through DJ, our RVs and our boats. We took out a couple cash value life insurance policies, wanting to do long-term after we retire. DJ helped us through the steps on that.
DJ Coulter, American Family Insurance, 235-6641, djcoulter.com.
Light wind and mainly clear skies continue through this evening and tonight as temperatures drop down to a low of 21. We'll see that wind picking up around 10 to 20 on Saturday. With increasing clouds into the afternoon, we'll have high temperatures in the mid-40s with a slight chance for a rain or snow shower Saturday night. For Sunday, it turns windy with gusts up to 50 miles an hour to the west. It will be partly to mostly cloudy with a high near 41. From the WDAY Skywatch Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Justin Storm.
Here's Police Chief Dave Dreyevich.
Marijuana ruins lives. Legalizing marijuana will increase addiction and mental illness. It will make our streets less safe, and it will lead to increased drug use, especially by kids. The backers of Measure 2 are not telling you the truth. Marijuana is not safe, and we don't need another way for people to ruin their lives. Please join law enforcement from across North Dakota and vote no on Measure 2.
Paid for by the Brighter Future Alliance. Pat Finken, Chair.
Angry outbursts, bullying, harassment, and emotional abuse. The allegations against State Senate candidate Dan Bomer are horrifying. Divorce records say the cops were called to Bomer's home multiple times, and he had to be escorted from a doctor's office by police. Worse, Bomer recorded his young son while he showered. He recorded his wife while she slept and broke into their bedroom after she barricaded the door. Bomer even made her drive herself to the doctor while suffering a miscarriage. After their divorce, Bomer paid his child support late, too, weeks at a time, failing to provide for his young children. After all that, Dan Bomer wants to represent us in the state Senate. But after calling his own wife a cunt, stupid, a parasite, we should never call Dan Bomer senator.
This independent expenditure is paid for by the DFL Senate Caucus. It is not coordinated with or approved by any candidate, nor is any candidate responsible for it.
Hey, real estate market, well, it's unpredictable as ever, and you need someone who's going to help you understand the true value of your home, not just sell it because they want to make some commission. That's why you need to talk to John at JK Property Partners. John Nassau is going to take care of you. So is his crew. Selling your home, not fun. All kinds of things to consider when you're selling your home. Costly repairs, packing, cleaning, inspections, inconvenience of open houses, strangers roaming through your home. Not to mention the uncertainty of knowing what your home's going to sell for and when. JK Property Partners, they got a different way to sell your home. There's another option for you. They will buy your house as is. No commissions, no showings or inspections. You can even close on your home and have a check right in your hand in as little as 2 weeks. Now in these crazy times, hey, now's the time to receive your instant offer. Call John Nassau or go online to JK. Well, just go online to jkpropertypartners.com. You'll get all the contact information. JK Property Partners, delivering dreams by opening doors.
Hour number 2 of the Cass County Sheriff's Debate, the one and only debate happening between the two candidates running for sheriff here in Cass County, current incumbent Jesse Jahner, as well as his challenger, Cass County Sheriff's Deputy Mathew King. Again, thank you to our sponsors, All Finish Concrete, West Fargo Events, Plains Grain and Agronomy. NDSC has apprenticeship program, and Hanson Runsveld Funeral Home. Again, I am WDAY Radio News Director Kyle Cornell moderating the debate. Hour number 2 of the time here with these two gentlemen. Again, thank you both for making time out of your schedules to stop and talk about the issues facing those here in Cass County, of course. Moving on in the debate, this next question will go to Deputy King. We'll start with you this hour. You've obviously been outspoken about communication inside the sheriff's office being one of the main issues and one of the reasons why you decided to get in to this race. I want to talk to you about morale inside the sheriff's department, being a current deputy. Do you feel staff are generally content and happy with what they're doing currently at the sheriff's office? And if not, how do you plan to possibly change that if you get into the office on Tuesday?
Do you have like 3 questions in there? So the general morale, I would say, inside the office depends on situation. It depends on department. It depends on where they're at, on if they're content with things. I know there's a lot of frustration with communication. And we had this talk last week where I was on the Jay Thomas show, and Sheriff, you called in and said that I didn't know what I was talking about because of miscommunication with Jason Anderson. That wasn't the communication I was talking about. I was talking about the communication that would have happened between the sheriff and the director of parole and probation, where we had 2 individuals that may not have been hired because of communication between those 2. That was what I was talking about that day, not Jason Anderson of the communication, but I have parole and probation and people reaching out saying, the director came out saying we can't hire Cass County employees because of Jesse. Now, I also understand where Jesse might have been coming from, because if those 2 employees came, we'd probably have to shut down our CSU unit. But where do we get off by stopping that? Another miscommunication which I think happened was another OPS. I know there were some frustrations over this, and it's kind of been alluded to with another deputy. He found something in his OPS file, had a conversation with the sheriff, and he got put on admin leave for a mistake. So Sheriff, you can definitely jump in and rebut on it afterwards, but we did have an individual that found something, had a conversation. From my understanding, I haven't looked at the records, I haven't looked at it, but he did share his story with me about how he didn't have communication with the supervisor prior to an OPS, and that wasn't exactly correct. Had a conversation with the sheriff, and I don't know the exchanging of words that happened or anything along those lines, but for finding a mistake that the sheriff would have put in this memorandum, we have a guy that gets put on admin leave. So there's that kind of issues. There's another one where it's just, it seems like we're getting clarifying emails. Sheriff came on last week, said that I was giving misinformation about Laney. Like, he's not an employee here, but he was supposed to have an account for DAPL Legal. But according to the records I pulled, Laney there were no active accounts when this new email account came up, and I'm the one that's giving misinformation. So when we talk about communication and we talk about some of the frustrations going on inside the office, people just want to be, hey, here's the honest truth. What are we doing? What's going on? This situation with Laney could have been handled if the email that came out on Wednesday or Thursday, when he kind of gave some more information, if that email would have came out in September, we probably wouldn't have an issue with it. So there's a lot of stuff going on. I hear nothing but communication needs to be better, whether it's from the top down or from a supervisor to supervisor, or it just even employee to employee. We need to work on better communication all the way through. So when I bring up communication, we need to work on a few things. Some of it could be just honest mistakes of misinterpreting and things like that. But then you go back to one of our policies that says that the presumption of our words, actions, or behaviors are more important than the intent behind them, where we have to be a little bit more conscious of how we're saying our words and doing what we're doing.
Sheriff Jahner, I will forward the same question to you and give you a chance to respond as well. The morale currently in the Sheriff's Department, obviously there's always room for improvement, but I'm just curious to know how you think it is now, and obviously responding to Deputy King's comments there too.
Sure. So I think that there's a lot of pieces that play into department morale. I think that
Some of those can be controlled by the employee, and some of them are outside the employee's reach. So, for example, I think that every employee that comes to work every day can contribute to how the morale is just by their attitude that they bring every day, right? And then there's going to be some of those things that that are out of control, whether it's me going to the commission and asking for certain things like benefits, pay, and things like that. That also plays into morale. And I think that since I've been sheriff, I've been trying extremely hard to get us better benefits. Since I've been there, I've gotten us some sort of a different pay raise every year since I've been there, and so I've been really trying to increase morale that way. And then, of course, we have the morale issue of recruiting and retention, and just the national issue that we're having with law enforcement trying to recruit people and people having to work long hours and stuff like that. So that plays in morale. So I think morale comes from a lot of different angles. There's a lot of different contributing factors that contribute to that. And I think that we're working really hard to try to increase morale every day to make sure that we have that people have a good place to come to work to every day. Matt started going down the road of communication, and so oftentimes what you'll hear him say is that he's heard this or he's heard that. Communication can always be better in any organization. That's one of the main causes of some problems. We all know that. We talked about that we have a large organization. We have approximately 240 positions when we're fully staffed. And the way that the sheriff's office works, it works on a chain of command. Each employee is supposed to report problems to their supervisor, and that's supposed to come up to the chain. And much like Matt mentioned earlier, I trust that my captains, my sergeants are handling those at some level, those communication things. But communication is a two-way street. A number of things that Matt brought up, Matt hasn't come into my office and talked to me about them. So, that's communication to me is coming and getting the proper information and not just hearing from other employees what they think is going on. And so there's been a number of different things that I've tried to do to open up the lines of communication within our organization. Again, I mentioned that when I started, I went around and did one-on-ones with our staff. That took me several months to do that. And I really wanted to see where everyone was at and get that communication from them. We have what's called the Senior Leadership Advisory Committee, and that committee meets with me quarterly. And there's a representative from each entity inside the organization where they can bring problems, different questions that they have to my attention at that time. I started last year what's called the Sheriff's Day, where I go around to each different division inside our organization, and I spend a day with them so I can see what types of concerns that they're having, what types of issues they're having, what type of resources they think that they need, what kind of equipment do they need, what kind of training do they need. We have a command staff meeting. We try to have those monthly, but it's been a little bit tough with how busy we've been lately, but we usually monthly or bi-monthly. And then through our performance evaluation process, like I mentioned earlier, that gives our employees an opportunity to speak with their supervisors and mention issues that they're having. So I think we've done a number of different things to try to increase communication. But again, communication is a two-way street. If people have certain issues or questions, they should come to the person that knows exactly what's going on. I'm not really sure what he's talking about with probation and parole, and that they've talked to me. I've never talked to probation and parole for over the last couple months or a year in reference to them hiring people. So I'm not sure what he's talking about there. He's never come and talked to me about that issue, so I don't know what he's referencing there. That would be something new to me that he's bringing up. As far as the OPS investigation, again, if Matt wanted to come into my office, I can certainly talk to him about the employee that he's talking about, where he thought that something was, in the way that I had written it, was giving a little bit different meaning in the way that this employee interpreted it. And that employee talked to me about it, and we made that change as an addendum to their file, to their OPS file. And so certainly that was good communication. The employee came in, visited with me, they had an issue with something, and it was taken out of context in how I had written something, and we changed it, and that got changed. And so that's really the communication we're looking for. I haven't seen that from other people who might have some stuff. So certainly I have an open door policy, and people can always come in and visit with me about stuff.
Quick question on that. You made the addendum to it. Mm-hmm. Did you also put him on admin leave because of it? I mean, he ended up going home that day without his badge, gun, and everything else.
He went on an admin leave because he didn't follow a criminal procedure and putting evidence into
But he already spent a day in the hay for that already, didn't he?
No.
Didn't he already pay that?
No, the other one was from being insubordinate, was the other days that he got off.
Yeah,
That's
OPS
the one that you're talking
2206
about.
was the insubordination, and that would be for what he said, this is wrong, and you put an addendum in it, and you're kind of playing it off like, oh, we had a good conversation, but you put him on admin leave, right?
Yeah, he got placed on
notices that there's something wrong in his documentation.
Yep,
and whether he was insubordinate or not, you put him on admin leave for something that you had to fix.
So he came into my office and asked me about it, and I told him it was no problem to change it. And so we mentioned that we were going to do that, and he became upset about some other things. So he got placed on admin leave for being insubordinate. And again, Matt, if you need that information, come on in and visit with me. Or go.
He called me that night trying to figure out what was going on.
So
because that was coming from him, straight from him.
Always good to get both sides of the story, and you can go get that OPS investigation again.
No, I've learned.
Deputy King, I want to ask you that question, kind of piggybacking off of this now too. Do you believe there's an open door policy at the Cass County Jail or Cass County Sheriff's Department to go talk to Sheriff Jahner about these kind of things?
I want to say yes, there is. There's always been an open door kind of a policy, but when we come down to communication, Jesse, I've been in your office a few times. We've had a couple conversations, but other people have been in there as well, and they don't feel like anything's going to get done, or they don't feel heard, they don't feel valued, they don't feel like they're getting there, so what's the point of going to have that? I get, Jesse, you're talking that communication's a two-way street, but if you don't listen to the people and try to take in what they're saying and willing to work with them or make them at least think that you're going to work with them, they're not going to come talk to you.
Oh, most certainly.
That's one of the biggest complaints.
I'd be looking for specific examples from you, Matt.
Well, some people don't want to get involved because they're worried about any kind of retaliation.
And I'm not aware of an incident
I
where
tell
I ever
them,
retaliated.
I tell them to go have a conversation with them. When they come and talk to me, I tell them to go have a conversation with you because I know that's going to be your question. That's always going to be your question. But I'm not in the position to help them. It's not my story to tell them. And if they don't feel comfortable or be able to trust in you to come talk to you, that's where we end up having an issue, and that's where we need to work on our better communication.
Kyle, I'd like to bring up something about communication that I think is specific towards Matt and what he's bringing up. So when Matt came into my office and mentioned to me that he was going to run for sheriff, we discussed it for a little while. And when he left my office, the initial time that he came in and mentioned it, he was unsure if he was going to run. And so I mentioned to him, I said, hey, if you decide that this is something you're going to do, can you let me know by a Friday? He had come in earlier in the week, and let me know if you're going to do that, because I think it's really important to everyone who's inside the organization that we communicate with them and let them know that we might have another person running for sheriff, because certainly that's going to get people probably a little bit worried about their jobs and things like that. So the day came around where Matt said he was going to contact me, and he didn't contact me. I called him, he didn't answer. On 2 days later, then he called and left a message and said, I don't remember the exact context of the message, but just that he couldn't make contact with me on that Friday. So then it was either Monday or Tuesday. The following day, he came in and asked me a few other questions, and again, I had mentioned to him, I said, hey, if you're gonna decide to do this, please let me know so that again we can communicate with the whole organization to keep them on par with what's going on, because people are starting to talk about it. They're starting to get a little worried. And the next time that I heard that Matt was going to run was from the media on the day that the petitions were due. And so based on that lack of communication, I needed to send out an email to the whole organization explaining and apologizing to them that I'm sorry that they had heard through the media that he was going to do this, that I had asked him to communicate with me a few different times so we could let our staff know, and that didn't happen. And so again, I think that that just kind of illustrates that communication. Again, it's a two-way street. There was some definite lack of communication there on a very important issue that definitely has impacted the organization over the last several months, on a failed communication on his part so that we could let people know.
Deputy King, like a response to that, yeah.
But at the end of the day, do I have an obligation to tell you what my plans are? Like, I told you that I'd try to do that. And April 14th, when you talk about public safety, when we were down 5 deputies on the street, you bring me into the office and you remove me from the street, you remove a UAS asset, which is also public safety, which was in my best interest so that the citizens don't feel awkward from seeing me in uniform, as I believe you told me, that it gives me equal campaigning rights, or time, I think is how you put it. It was in my best interest to go to court transport so there was no fraudulent claims of me campaigning on duty. And then the last thing was, you're sheriff and I can move you. Now, when we talk about public safety and communication, when we started that meeting off, I flat out told you, I'm like, you know what, I should have probably told you that I was going to do this, but I had no obligation to do so.
No, certainly done.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I was going back and forth. You're right, I was going back and forth, and I was trying to figure it out, and we had some good conversation on that March 31st one. But I didn't have any obligation. So to say that I had lack of communication, I didn't need to have communication, so let's make sure that's clear.
Yep.
Right?
Fully.
You fully.
Yep.
But you just said that it was a major lack of communication on my part. But I didn't need to have communication with you. So which one is it? Is it a major lack of communication, or don't I need to have that?
Most definitely you didn't need to. I'm saying out of respect for the agency and communicating with them.
Right,
because there were a lot of people that had come into my office and had started hearing about it. And I think, again, this isn't really about you or I, Matt. It's about the organization.
It's about the citizens of this county.
And the citizens, and making sure that we can communicate with them and they know what was going on, because there were a lot of people that were worried about it.
Okay.
So,
gentlemen, I want to move on to another topic. Obviously, we've talked about retention and getting folks interested in working for the Cass County Sheriff's Office and the jail, two entities that could use some help. Obviously, we know that. Sheriff Jahner, I'm going to start with you. Your thoughts on how to be able to try and draw more people in a difficult time where law enforcement is under a lot of scrutiny. Even though we have a lot of support here in the FM Metro and in Cass County, it still seems like we're not getting to exactly where we want to be when it comes to staffing yet.
Yeah, and as I mentioned previously, as we were talking here, right now, it is tough to draw people into law enforcement, and isn't just with the Cass County Sheriff's Office, it's nationwide. And I think there's a lot of things that contribute to that. I think that in general, pay benefits for organizations nationwide, and then I think that for a period of time there with kind of some of the criticisms revolving around law enforcement, it was making it a career that wasn't attractive to people. And so we've had to do a number of different things at the Sheriff's Office, and I mentioned a few of those earlier. I'll just kind of reiterate those. We sat down and we looked at it and said, hey, how can we draw more people into the organization? And so we put together a recruiting team, a recruiting effort, and those individuals have been going out continually, like I mentioned, to high schools, to colleges, to events that we have in our community to draw people in. In addition to that, I've been working diligently with our commissioners to get our pay raised, to be more competitive with the agencies in our area. We did a pay study, and our pay scale got adjusted based on my efforts and working collaboratively with our commissioners. I was able to get our pay bumped twice for starting off in the jail, because literally it was a couple bucks more than starting at some fast food restaurants here in town. And so we were able to get that pay bump, and then also get another raise within that first year that people are there. We were able to add to our benefits, like I mentioned earlier, and add a vision insurance, something that we didn't have before, based on a continued effort. And then going forward, I'm working with commissioners right now to reduce some of our pay steps so that people can go higher in their pay steps a little bit quicker, and see more money in their pockets quicker. So we've been working on all of those efforts, and I think that in addition to that, we've been doing other things as far as adding some more resources and some different things that our officers are able to do. Some things that might be a little bit more fun, as far as in the wintertime doing snowmobile patrol, just adding different activities that are really unique to the Cass County Sheriff's Office, being on the airboat team, different things like that maybe some organizations don't have, to draw people in that way. And so there's just a number of things I think that we're trying to do to bring people in. Our latest pre-service academy that we have going right now, we have 88 people in there. We haven't had that many in a pre-service academy for quite some time, and they're all looking to go full-time. So I think that we're starting to turn that corner, and we're starting to go in a positive direction. We've got a number of people signed up for our January pre-service academy, And so I think that we're starting to turn that corner. And then certainly the piece that plays into that is retention. And, we work to get some bonuses for our employees that are there. If they can get people to apply with our agency, our current employees that are there, they can get a bonus and pay that way. And then again, just adjusting those pay steps to retain people that we have there.
Deputy King, I'll ask you the same question. You talk about retention. We talk about drawing people in to want to work for the Cass County Sheriff's Office, the jail. How, in your plans, if elected sheriff on Tuesday, do you plan to address that and to try and garner more interest here in the community and around the region?
This one's always been at the back of my mind. The reason being is when I first started Cass County, I'd tell people, come work for us, but it's an act of God to get out in the street. It's an act of God to get other places because people enjoyed working here, and nobody left unless there was a retirement. And if there was a retirement at the top, it really shook some things, and we would hire a little bit here and there. When it comes to trying to get retention, it goes right back to my communication. I think that if we would have had better communication in a couple of these different things before April 11th when I came in here, I don't think that we would have had some of the things that have left. What has it been, 5 people in the month of October that have left our office? Like we've had some people leaving here. Now we need to try to figure out, how do we keep our people here? How do we start recruiting everybody back in? I know that Jesse and his recruiting team has sent out to high schools and colleges and trying to bring in. We need to get back out into the elementary schools. We need to get back into educating the young kids. When I've gone out to schools, before I got out of patrol, I started noticing that there wasn't a lot of kids that were really going, ooh, I want to be a fireman or I want to be a police officer. You don't hear that all that often, and it's probably because of the national media or the media that we have. But around here, I mean, the people love law enforcement up here. They want us. Now, sometimes we're there when they don't need us, and we're not there when they do need us. And that's just because we cover 1,768 square miles, and right now we're short-staffed. And if we get those steps drop back down, because if I win in November, I'm going to continue just where Jesse's at. Like, that needs to happen. That helps out with our retention of getting some more money for the job that we're doing. But then I also need to get more people in. If we can get more people inside this office and not have that old school mentality of, well, we have to hit so many numbers or so many people or whatever the case is that goes on where we never ask for people for this office, I want to ask for more people, because that lessens the amount of duties that are placed on some of our supervisors, that lessens some of the duties that are placed on the current staff members. That starts bringing up morale, and now maybe we can get back to, it's an act of God to get back out in the street of Cass County because everybody wants to be here.
And Kyle, just so we're clear, I've been asking for staff since I've been here, and the commission has been very good. I mean, certainly there's, we got to make sure that we're fiscally responsible in doing that, and I've been pretty active at that. So it's not like I'm not asking for that. That's been a continual effort, but certainly there's a fine balance in there, right? We ask for people, but we also got to be able to bring people in. So we've got open spots right now.
Right, exactly. Gentlemen, again, I'm going to do this 1-minute response for a quick hitter here. I know there's another measure on the ballot on Tuesday. Measure 2, of course, talking about recreational marijuana. Sheriff Jahner, I'll start with you. Your thoughts on that measure? Do you think it should be passed, or how do you feel?
Sure. So my answer to that is that certainly as law enforcement, we don't make the laws. We enforce them, and so the voters will go to the polls and they will decide if they think that recreational marijuana should be passed in the state of North Dakota, and whatever they decide to do is what that's what we'll do. I am a little bit concerned about maybe some of the pieces that might not be put into place right now, some of the infrastructure pieces, and what I mean by that is we have a large number of people that are in our jail are in there for addiction issues, and what we're seeing is trying to get people help when they leave our facility for addiction issues or even while they're in our facility. And there's lack of some of those services right now, and there's lack of some employees in those jobs as well. So we've been having a hard time trying to get people into those addiction services and getting them help to break those addiction issues. And so I don't know that we have everything in place as far as an infrastructure to move forward with that right now. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more effort placed on that side, maybe some efforts to come and visit with law enforcement and say, hey, if we're going to legalize this, what types of problems do you guys think you're going to see? And maybe work together to, if that was the case, that we could maybe address some of those. And I don't think that happened. So I think that we're kind of putting the cart before the horse right now.
Deputy King, I'll ask you the same question here as far as Measure 2 and recreational marijuana. Your thoughts?
My thoughts on Measure 2 is if we had a better infrastructure, just kind of piggybacking off the last part of what Jesse was saying, if we had an infrastructure of how this was all going to look and play out, if there was conversations with law enforcement, and it's still, we need the infrastructure. The voters are going to vote, and we're either going to have an infrastructure or not. I would say not yet. Do it the next go around. Sit down, have a plan for the infrastructure of what's going to happen, have the legislature and everybody else start laying out an infrastructure. If the people want Measure 2 to pass, we need an infrastructure to kind of figure this out, because what we also, that nobody really talks about, is if any one of our canines are in marijuana, we now have to start looking at, this is legalized and back and forth.
And our canines aren't trained in that, so we won't have an issue at the sheriff's office with that.
All right, gentlemen, again, with that, we're going to take another quick break here on the Cass County Sheriff's Debate special coverage of your November 2022 election. Again, thank you to our sponsors, All Finish Concrete, West Fargo Events, Plains Grain and Agronomy, NDSCS Apprenticeship Program, and Hanson Runsveld Funeral Home. Quick break. When we come back, more of your questions and a bit of a twist to the debate format here on AM 970, FM 93.1 at WDAY.
There's something out there, and it's coming soon. It's winter. Be prepared with a new Toro snowblower at Lakeland General Store, packed with powerful features and model sizes to fit any job. Lakeland has everything you need to conquer Minnesota winters, whether it's shovels, salt, blowers, or warm winter gear. Plus, don't forget the bait. When it comes to convenience at the lake, nothing beats Lakeland. Lakeland General Store, just south of Detroit Lakes at the corner of Highway 59 and 34, Dunvilla.
This is former State Senator Curtis Olofsson. I'm running to return to the Senate in the new District 10 in South Fargo. My number one priority is to get back on the Senate Judiciary Committee, where I previously served for 6 years as Vice Chair, so that I can take action to address the ever-increasing rate of crime in our city and state. I'm also committed to helping working families access quality childcare and supporting our state economy. Vote for experience on November 8th. Vote Olofsson for District 10 State Senate.
Paid for by District 10 Republicans, Curtis Olofsson, Chair.
It's time for a change, and it starts with us. Measure 2 to legalize and regulate marijuana for adults in North Dakota is on the ballot this November. I'm Mark Fries, a criminal law attorney from Fargo. I was raised in Bismarck, where I served in the National Guard and as a police officer. I'm voting yes on 2. During my 5 years as a patrol officer with the Bismarck Police Department, I witnessed firsthand the waste of resources arresting and prosecuting people for small amounts of marijuana. Measure 2 allows police to spend more time and resources on more serious and violent crimes. Montana voters passed a similar law in 2020. Now, they're seeing the benefits. Legalization is creating jobs and raising millions in new revenue to invest in drug treatment programs and services for veterans. It's time to take a new, smarter approach in North Dakota. Let's vote yes on 2.
Paid for by New Approach North Dakota. Mark Fries, Treasurer.
Why High Plains Apache? Well, there are so many reasons it's why High Plains Apache. Ask your neighbors about their sales and service or new and used deals on sprayers. The parts and service department, and yes, a very well-respected sales department. Everything you'll need to get started this season with the sprayers for your operation. You'll find out a lot more at the website, High Plains Apache Sprayers. You'll find them at highplainsapache.com. That's highplainsapache.com.
Light wind and mainly clear skies continue through this evening and tonight as temperatures drop down to a low of 21. We'll see that wind picking up around 10 to 20 on Saturday. With increasing clouds into the afternoon, we'll have high temperatures in the mid-40s with a slight chance for a rain or snow shower Saturday night. For Sunday, it turns windy with gusts up to 50 miles an hour to the west. It will be partly to mostly cloudy with a high near 41. From the WDAY Skywatch Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Justin Storm.
Don't be fooled. On Election Day, vote no on Measure 1.
Term limits take away your power to vote for the legislative candidate of your choice. Term limits shifts power to bureaucrats and lobbyists. Term limits eliminate experienced lawmakers committed to North Dakota energy, agriculture, and jobs. Don't let out-of-state interests change our Constitution and your right to vote for who you want. Vote no to North Dakota legislative term limits. Paid for by North Dakotans Against Term Limits, Mike Nathie, Chair.
Hi, this is Ben Hansen running for the Cass County Commission. When you go to the polls, please remember that Ben Hansen's focus will be on ensuring flood protection, supporting the trade school initiative, and ensuring Fargo-Cass public health. Aside from a commissioner, I may be your neighbor, fellow resident of Cass County, and want the same future you want when it comes to issues before the commission. I'm Ben Hansen, and I would appreciate your vote.
Paid for by Ben Hansen for Cass County Commissioner, Amanda Johnson, Treasurer.
Ben Hansen, the responsible choice.
Angry outbursts, bullying, harassment, and emotional abuse. The allegations against State Senate candidate Dan Bomer are horrifying. Divorce records say the cops were called to Bomer's home multiple times, and he had to be escorted from a doctor's office by police. Worse, Bomer recorded his young son while he showered. He recorded his wife while she slept and broke into their bedroom after she barricaded the door. Bomer even made her drive herself to the doctor while suffering a miscarriage. After their divorce, Bomer paid his child support late, too, weeks at a time, failing to provide for his young children. After all that, Dan Bomer wants to represent us in the state Senate. But after calling his own wife a cunt, stupid, a parasite, we should never call Dan Bomer senator.
This independent expenditure is paid for by the DFL Senate Caucus. It is not coordinated with or approved by any candidate, nor is any candidate responsible for it.
I'm Carter Eisinger. It's time to get serious about putting North Dakota kids first. We must defend parental rights through all decisions in our children's education. We must reduce wasteful administrative bloat in the budget and instead prioritize our teachers and the classroom. Finally, we must protect local control of education through the school board, not top-down standards and policies from Washington, D.C. On November 8th, vote Brad Leeser and Carter Eisinger.
Paid for by District 11 Republicans.
Time now for Focus on the Field with your Ag Director, agriculturalist Bridget Riedel.
I didn't think it would do anything and thought maybe 10 people might watch, says Malcolm McLean of Malcolm's Ranch Hacks. McLean has always been looking to complete ranch tasks faster and more efficiently, which fuels his engineering of ranch-related tools and equipment that can help make typical ranch-related tasks easier. From the all-in-one fencing pliers to the barbed wire spacer, McLean's ideas come from his own experience working on ranches and grazing reserves. In late 2019, after building several tools, he decided to share ideas online, not expecting a lot from the effort. But through Facebook, Malcolm's Ranch Hacks have been quite enjoyable and useful, reaching over 4 million views and sparking hundreds of comments. You're likely to find him on Facebook as well as YouTube. Please go ahead and check him out, and you might find something useful for your farm.
That's today's Focus on the Field with Bridget Riedel, your ag industry expert. Tune in for Bridget's Ag News updates each weekday here on WDAY.
More of the Jay Thomas Show in 60 seconds.
Here's Police Chief Dave Dreyevich.
Marijuana ruins lives. Legalizing marijuana will increase addiction and mental illness. It will make our streets less safe, and it will lead to increased drug use, especially by kids. The backers of Measure 2 are not telling you the truth. Marijuana is not safe, and we don't need another way for people to ruin their lives. Please join law enforcement from across North Dakota and vote no on Measure 2.
Paid for by the Brighter Future Alliance. Pat Finken, Chair.
Guess who's attacking Measure 1 and the term limits that 81% of North Dakota voters support?
Let me guess. Career politicians and lobbyists?
You got it. Term limits are working for the people in 36 other states. And with a yes vote on Measure 1, term limits will finally be put to work for us.
I agree. In North Dakota, citizens should be in charge, not career politicians. I'm voting yes on Measure 1 for term limits. Paid for by U.S. Term Limits. Howard Rich, Chairman.
Back here on AM 970, FM 93.1 WDAY. It is your special election coverage of the November 2022 midterms. It is the one and only Cass County Sheriff's Debates, of course, here on the Jay Thomas Show. Right now, catching up again with Cass County Sheriff Jesse Jahner and his opponents in the race this coming Tuesday, Deputy Mathew King. Gentlemen, let's change things up a bit. All right, so this is what I meant by the twist. I've been asking you guys questions now for, about an hour and 45 minutes. So what I want to do, I think it's your turn. So we're going to start with Deputy King. If you could ask Sheriff Jesse Jahner one question right now, what would you ask him?
One question right now. We were going to be done with all of this, but was my move to court transport for your own political gain to remove me from the public's eye?
Your move to court transport was based on the fact that I didn't want you to be put into bad situations. I didn't want our citizens to be put into bad situations, because certainly once you announced that you were running, people were going to ask you questions. And I didn't want you to be put into a position where you're going to have to violate state law by answering them or any of our policies, because certainly if someone asks you a question about running or anything of that nature, I would suspect that you would probably have to answer them, or it'd be kind of rude if you didn't answer.
But
and
I've
then
always told them,
I had also received information that you had been talking about it on a few different occasions.
Okay, so if all of a sudden now you've heard about that I was doing that, when I was sitting in there, you said you received a weird phone call that had no substance to it. Like you threw your arms up, like something was wrong in that meeting. That tipped a red flag, and then you're like, do you understand why you're being moved? But then the patrol command staff's telling me that I told somebody of your friend that I didn't need to listen to you or something, and that was part of the move. But all this miscommunication and miss everything, the way I look at it as, if we're looking at public safety and we're looking at all of that, we were down 5. I made it down 6 because you moved me, and then we went down 7 on our patrol commands, or our patrol staff at that point. And then you had to quickly hire 3, which they came out a couple weeks later, but the citizens of this county went down 7 people out of the 17. And I have to just look at what you were trying to mention, because now all of a sudden you're telling me that right now today, and not way back then, was that you heard that I was talking. My normal response
since that time, I've heard that.
So every time that I talk, I have the badge on, the Great Seal of North Dakota, I'm in uniform. I'm sorry, I can't talk about this. It causes election rules and violations. Sure. This is what I tell everybody, and everybody's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to ask. I'm like, no, I just can't talk about it. So when we look at putting the public first, and public safety is number 1, you took away an asset for UAS that is officer safety and public safety, which was a vital tool, right? You removed that from the street.
I think that we took away a vital asset for UAS and the citizens of Cass County when you didn't fulfill your team commander position on the UAS team. That's what I feel.
So now you'll recant from November of 19 when you told me that it was a political move, or won't you admit to that?
I'm not. What are you asking me?
So when that whole, found this letter in my file, right, for UAS, you guys had all these demands, all of this stuff, and I told you it wasn't going to work. Even July 22nd, I told you what you needed to do to make the Red River Valley UAS successful, and you still don't listen to me, right? You said you don't understand UAS, you don't do it. So you told me in the words in that memorandum were from Chief Dirksen and Chief Todd, but you're the one that signed off on it. But then you didn't even tell me about it until I go and pull my file and I find it. Like anything negative should go and I should be notified. But you played it off, well, you didn't do this, this, and this. I did the best with what I could, with what you guys allowed me to do when I was asking for more. So when I told you that you guys set me up to fail, and every chief pilot in that whole little ordeal, I tell people, it's set to fail. You have a standard that does not work. I've tried to explain it to you. You guys don't listen. That chief pilot is taking on a role. Because now you're on your 3rd chief pilot right now for the Red River Valley UAS. I was removed, another person left. Yeah, you're on your 3rd.
Who was the other person?
Chris Piper, me, Chris Piper, and then now you're on to Tyler, right?
Deputy King, I'm going to stop you right now because again, we have to keep moving along.
I don't think that it's failed. I don't think either of those guys have failed.
Sheriff
Jahner, had
Jahner,
any of the complaints that you had when you left.
I'm not saying that they failed. I'm saying
I think
the infrastructure in place fails them.
I think it's been successful. that they're doing a good job.
I want to do the same thing now because again I had Sheriff King ask the question.
But you being removed and
sure.
that being placed into your file were things that were brought to my attention. I didn't initiate that.
No, and we had a conversation about it, didn't we?
All right, gentlemen, really quick now because again we're running a little bit out of time here. Sheriff Jahner, I want to ask you the same question. I'll put you in the boat now to let you ask Deputy King a question.
Sure.
You can ask him one currently. So.
Well, on June 6th, when he was interviewed about being removed from the UAS team, he mentioned in there that it was very stressful for him to be in charge of that team, and that contributed to him. He said he felt stressed. Those were his comments in that article. And then on Jay Thomas's show, when the stuff came out about Code 4. He mentioned that he had taken that week off because he knew it was going to be a stressful week. Something of that nature.
Well, I took the week off to go farming,
but you
and then it
mentioned
turned into a stressful week with Bailey Hurley
okay.
and everybody trying to track me down, going,
so,
okay, what is this?
Okay, so my question to him is, again, this is a large organization with a fairly substantial budget serving a number of people in Cass County. My concern is, if he gets stressed in the future, which is going to be a daily thing for him, is he going to have to leave or something going to happen? Because certainly in these situations, he's brought that up, that he felt stressed, and that's why he couldn't do one job, and that week was going to be stressful for him, so he took it off. So he's going to deal with that stress, and those things are that much to what he's going to deal with on a day-to-day basis of running this organization. So my question is he just going to walk off, or I'm concerned about it.
Well, first let me correct you. I didn't leave for a week of vacation because I was stressed.
I don't know how long you left, but you.
I went on vacation to go help sugar beet farmers. It was going to be
a stressful week, you said.
No, it turned into a stressful week. Okay? Big difference. I left to go do sugar beets, to just go be with the farmers, get back with the agriculture, because agriculture is a big economy boost into this, or not only our organization for taxes, but the whole community as a whole, right? So I'm out there with the farmers working until I get a call from April Baumgartner going, what is this? And then Bailey Hurley sends me a nice fancy little email, and then we have a conversation, and now I'm trying to figure out what's going on. Now, I'm not worried about the stress, because at the end of the day, with the June 6th and the UAS, if I'm in your seat as sheriff, I get to make sure that things get done. I can't do that from the position I'm sitting at right now. I can't do certain things. I can't affect and promote people from moving up or being able to succeed at their positions that they're looking for, because I'm not in your seat. We can sit and I can talk until I'm blue in the face, and I've mentioned this before. I can talk until I'm blue in the face, and you still don't care. I've said this over and over and over again. At the end of the day, when it comes down to feeling valued inside this office, it's not there. I'm running to stand up for people. I'm running to have a betterment of this county. At the end of the day, you have to, whatever you take, if you win this election, Jesse, heed my words, please do better. That's all I'm asking. These citizens deserve better. Our employees, goddamn, they deserve better. It frustrates me that I'm seeing these people get to the point and I can't do anything and they're asking me to do it. Okay? I have a passion for this community. I have a passion for our employees. That's all I'm asking. If you heed anything, if you're worried about stress, no. I'm going to be there every day. I want my squad car back. If I get elected November 8th, I want my squad car back. I want to go out, do the things. And I want to keep that squad car as a marked squad car while I run around being sheriff, so I can represent this office. I'm not going to put on a white shirt for a while. I want to wear that brown shirt to signify that our people will stand with us. I don't want to separate us. So you can tell me that you don't believe in me all that you want. That's perfectly all right. I'll take it. But I do care about our citizens. I do care about our employees, and I want better for this organization.
As do I care about them.
I have one more question for you guys before we get to closing statements, which I'll ask quickly again. I ask for a quick response to this. Deputy King, do you think, whether win or lose this coming Tuesday, do you still have a job if you do possibly lose at the Cass County Sheriff's Office?
I think that's a question for the big guy over there.
I'm asking your opinion right now. Do you believe that if you do lose, on Tuesday. We don't know, obviously, that the votes will decide that come Tuesday, but if it does go in that way, that you still will have a job at the Cass County Sheriff's Office beyond that date.
I don't know if he will let me go if we end up having a conversation. I don't know what his plan is. If, because of everything that's going on and the number of people, and get a little bit emotional because I care about this community and this organization, like, I think that I would probably start looking at leaving. I don't think that I would end up working here anymore.
Sheriff, I'll let you respond to that with your thoughts. I know I've asked you that question before as well, as what you think would happen in that context. And I'd ask you the same question, honestly, as well. Do you think if Deputy King won on Tuesday, would you still be welcome back because of your experience and your expertise in the office? Do you think you'd have a job?
I wouldn't continue working there if he became sheriff. So I obviously have concerns, which I've already mentioned today, and I would not continue to work there. I'd be concerned about leadership and some things that I mentioned, some of the stress things, and being able to work through critical incidents and the knowledge that he has to do that, and the safety of our staff.
Gentlemen, I got about 1 minute apiece left for you. Closing statements. Deputy King, I'll let you take the first one.
How long do we have for
about
closing?
a minute.
Oh, all right. Because of let's make this quick. So because of my UAS background and what Sheriff worries about my critical incident, I've also brought up different things in technology where we can have a one-stop shop. So we not only can we see the UAS, but we can see our body cams, be able to see where they're at, so we can make quick decision making and being able to send in IA teams or being able to see where everything's going. So I do have a mindset of critical incident, and I do have technology that comes along with it. So if you're looking for a change, early voting's already started. It's probably going to be closed here shortly.
About an hour.
In about an hour, right? So if you're looking for a change, November 8th, vote for King.
Sheriff Jahner, I'll give you the same minute here to just
Sure.
give your closing statement.
Well, Kyle, again, thanks for having this debate for us, and we I appreciate being able to get some of this information out. I also want to thank our citizens for the support that they've given me over the last 3.5 years as their Cass County Sheriff, and our agency for the last 3.5 years. I feel like we've been very proactive in approaching crime in this area. We've been very forward thinking, and we're going to continue with that effort. Obviously, we have some crime issues that we need to address in the community, and we're going to continue to do that. My ultimate goal is to make sure that we can keep this community safe so that people have a safe place to raise their family. I think that I bring, obviously, with over the last 3.5 years, my leadership experience to the office of sheriff, and I think that people know from my last 3.5 years how the agency, is going to move forward based on what we've done up to this point. And so I'm happy that, or looking forward to the opportunity to serving the Cass County residents and citizens for the next 4 years. So on November 8th, please vote to re-elect Jesse Jahner, Cass County Sheriff.
Gentlemen, again, thank you both so much for giving us your time today. I know it was a big time commitment, a couple hours, and I really appreciate you both stopping in and making time for this. Of course, thank you for listening as well here on our live stream, WDAY Radio. And thank you to Jay Thomas for letting us take over his show for a little bit. Ronnie is always behind the board there, pushing all the dials, pressing all the buttons, making us sound good. Gentlemen, best of luck. Come on November 8th, only a couple days away from this all coming to a head. Really appreciate you both stopping by again. Also, thank you to our sponsors, All Finish Concrete, West Fargo Events, Plains Grain and Agronomy, NDSCS Apprenticeship Program, and Hanson Runsvold Funeral Home. Again, I'm News Director Kyle Cornell here with WDAY Radio. Thank you for stopping by. That concludes the Cass County Sheriff's debates here for November 2022. Go vote. We'll see you out there.
Your weather station. Fast and first. Nobody does it better. This is WDAY Radio, AM 970 and FM 93.1. Fargo, Moorhead, West Fargo.
WDAY. Now at 5, this man is accused of setting fire to the homes of